Hi everyone, and welcome to Cranges' Corner, where we're intersecting X's and O's with data to help you dive into the NBA. Check out my pre-series and post-game articles for deeper dives on the rest of the tactics in the series, but today we're going to talk about Portland's Nurkic problem, which has been the key in my eyes to LA stopping Portland's offense in games 1 and 2. A big tactical move the Lakers have decided to pursue, and one I recommended pre-series, is hard hedging or showing on ball screens. This gets two players onto Dame or CJ temporarily, stopping the Dame pull-up three, making it harder to drive, but it gives up the pop, slip, or short roll to the screener. It takes one thing away, but it gives Portland one thing. The issue is, Nurkic has been that guy, and he's failed in that role. And because of this, LA has no reason to change this coverage, and Portland will continue having CJ and Dame nullified to a large extent. It's worked so well that LA has started leaving him alone on other plays, which makes this 10 times worse. If this doesn't improve, I don't see Portland's offense getting off the schneid for the rest of this series. So let's start by digging into why this is working for the Lakers. In these situations, one of the two areas that Nurkic is able to hurt the Lakers is with his scoring. But the fact is, on the season as a whole, he just has not been efficient, popping, slipping, or rolling. Let's start with slipping. He's barely done it on the year, 9 possessions all season, and when he has done it, he's had really poor efficiency. Part of that is he's just uncomfortable off the dribble attacking you in the mid-range. Part of it is that mid-range shot, when it's sped up, isn't a great option for him. And part of it is just indecision on his part. But this is something that he struggled with and doesn't seem to be a threat to the Lakers, and they're defending it as such. The second area that the Lakers hard hedge in theory gives up is the pick and pop. Nurkic, though, has shot 20% on threes for the season, which is a career high but still very low. In the playoffs on a small sample, he shot 40%, but unless that volume goes up, LA is happy to give that up compared to what they take away consistently on high volume in ball screens from Dame and CJ. This is also what lets LA ignore Nurkic and get 1.5 guys on Dame when he isolates, as they did 4 times in game 2, where they get 2 guys on him and leave Nurkic alone and have everybody else guarded up. The third area that Nurkic could in theory hurt the Lakers with their hard hedge ball screen coverage would be rolling, or in the short roll as a playmaker. Rolling specifically on the season, he's had a worse efficiency than 92% of NBA players who've had at least 10 attempts. So he's not a scorer. We see this in the clips. He's not that mid-range creator, and he's struggled to make decisions, and we see that in the numbers. Of the 103 guys who have rolled as much as Nurkic on the year, his turnover rate is higher than all but 5 of those players on those specific opportunities. For as good of a playmaker as he is in stationary situations, like an Andrew Bogut kind of guy, picking apart defenses with pinpoint passes that are honestly pretty impressive, he's not a playmaker in short roll situations and really hasn't been the whole season. You'd be hard-pressed to find short roll assists for him this entire year, and he's had plenty of opportunities, and we see that in this series. So with Nurkic not being able to hurt LA in these situations, and Whiteside being similarly not equipped to do so, LA really has no reason to adjust and stop hard hedging the ball screens that Portland uses. And as long as that's the case, Portland is really screwed in this series and will need more historically unlucky shooting nights from the Lakers to have a chance to win. Let's touch again on Nurkic's playmaking, because this is something that's a strength of his and something we've seen already in the series in both games. When he has space and is stationary, he's a key trigger man in a lot of Portland's sets to get their scorers the ball coming off of screens, and oftentimes is threading the needle to do so. The timing and accuracy he has are so important, which is why this is such a coveted skill set. We'll get to this more later, but Portland would be well served to get Nurkic more looks like these and can do so in the pick and roll. They just need to be smart about how they set it up. So that is a strength of Nurkic's, but to disrupt this playmaking in stationary situations, as I talked about in my pre-series article, you just need to get some ball pressure. We saw LA do this in the second half of game 1 after Nurkic created a handful of good looks as a stationary passer in the first half, but we saw this a lot more consistently in game 2 and right from the start. So LA made that adjustment, and because of doing so, they disrupted the timing and Nurkic's ability to thread the needle, which are both required with how a lot of these sets are run. This disrupted several plays just by them getting in his face. And if you can make him dribble, you've pretty much shut the action down. He's not going to be making great passes off the dribble. And if you get him attacking off the dribble as a scorer, he's not going to beat you 9 times out of 10. So even if the Lakers pick up a foul once a game from this, like Dwight did in game 1, or you get a little overzealous like AD did in that last clip, I think it's well worth it to be able to shut down some of these plays that Portland runs. All of that said, I think there are 4 different things that Portland can do to attack the Lakers' hard hedging. One would be having Nurkic shoot more threes when he's popping. If he has a 5 for 8 game shooting threes, that would move the needle more than 1 for 2 or 2 for 4. He might not be able to do it, but if he can, that might possibly force the Lakers' hand. And there isn't really much adjustment needed there other than him taking those shots. And they'll know whether he can or can't and if that's a reasonable adjustment. But based off of what we've seen in the playoffs, it seems like over the hiatus he was working on that shot. The second adjustment would be trying to get him similar playmaking situations as he's had as a stationary passer like we just watched, but after he's popping. So if you can run that pick and roll with him, get the ball to him on that pop, and as soon as that happens, have these off-screen motions take place rather than Portland's shooters just standing around, that would put him in situations he's comfortable with, that are a strength of his, that Portland likes to do already, and would remove that possible ball pressure, which has been negating that action in the first place for the first 2 games of the series. So that is option number 2. One adjustment Portland made in Game 2 to get Dame and CJ going downhill without a hard hedge is running more handoffs. And that's something that they can do way more often and way more effectively if they can use the fact that Nurkic is being left alone after this at a ball screen. So have him pop that, get him the ball right away, and then instead of him trying to attack or shoot a 3, immediately run a dribble handoff or a dribble pitch, and you have a 2-on-1 situation, and you just need to have your alignment right, but that's a way to get those guys downhill and counter what the Lakers are doing. Fourth adjustment, and something Portland hasn't done much this year, but Dallas does really well, would be having that screener, after they set the ball screen, go sprint immediately into a pin down or a flare screen for another Portland player. This would get them more scoring opportunities and would be a natural adjustment. LA can adjust to that by blitzing instead of hard hedging, but that's for a different video. We'll get there when we get there, but this would be step 1 to force the Lakers into switching their coverage. That's it for today, but make sure to follow me on Twitter at Tim_NBA and subscribe to this YouTube channel for more analysis moving forward.